flipping that switch and focusing on maybe wanting to pursue a career in education was really pivotal in my life. At that time in high school, my first couple of years in high school, I really wasn't a focused learner.
I'm hearing some personal motives. I'm hearing a nudge from that guidance counselor, even though that may be a little negative to begin with. But I mean, it just helped you in the right way. So, I mean, I think that is also a pivotal part in your journey. So, that is amazing. You're also drawing certain parallels between actors and teachers. That seemed very interesting to me. So, if I had to ask you, what do you think are the parallels between teachers and actors?
Teach myself how to study at that time, and that began a switch in my life where I was really, understanding the power of studying.
And I think if I had a teacher when I was a kid who opened up that much in front of me, and not to the point where they're oversharing, but like just showed themselves as vulnerable human beings, I think I would have connected with them a little bit more, especially with the whole maths and English thing. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I wish I could call up my maths teacher and tell him that right now. But yeah, I mean, I think that is such an incredible part of being a teacher, where you know where to draw the boundary, but also share some parts of your lives. So, welcome to the podcast, listeners. In today's schools, preparing students for the future isn't about just content, it's about equipping them with skills, tools, and support to thrive in an increasingly complex world. Joining us is Dr. Brian Graham, Superintendent of Grand Island Central School District in Erie County, New York. With nearly 4 decades in education, spanning in special education, teaching, and leadership, Dr. Graham has been a national voice on integrating AI and technology responsibly in K-12 classrooms. Under his leadership, Grand Island has expanded STEAM programs, embracing AI enhanced tools, and strengthened special education support, all while keeping community wellness and student success at the forefront. Dr. Graham, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Yeah, thank you so much for this invitation, Shreya. It's a pleasure to meet you, and I really thank you and the other founders of Tomo Club for shining a spotlight on education, leadership, and initiatives across the United States and the world. So it's a real pleasure to be here with you today.
We are very excited to have you with us today. So, I think I would like to start this discussion with understanding a little about your journey. So, you began as a special education teacher and you worked your way through principal and administrative roles to now become a superintendent. What was it initially that drew you to education, and do those motivations still drive you to your work today?
Yeah, excellent question. I actually thought that I wanted to be an actor when I was young, and I was starting to dabble in close-up magic and plays and musicals, and I really loved that aspect of uh, that part of my life, celebrating the arts. And I also recognized that I was really comfortable working with or hanging out with individuals who have severe physical or developmental disabilities. My cousin David had severe cerebral palsy, and I was always just really comfortable talking to him and being with him at parties and so forth. And then we had a close family friend named Stephen, who, definitely was growing up with a global disability. And as I was getting closer to thinking about what I was going to do after high school, I decided to focus on elementary and special education, and that's kind of how I got started. But it's also sometimes we're still performing as teachers in a classroom with kids, right? We're still up and performing, so I still get a chance to do that. And I'm a podcast host, so I get to engage in some of that performing as well now, and in my adult years. So I think flipping that switch and focusing on maybe wanting to pursue a career in education was really pivotal in my life. At that time in high school, my first couple of years in high school, I really wasn't a focused learner. I really wasn't studying. I wasn't attending to my responsibilities. And I remember talking to my guidance counselor, and he says, what do you want to do?" And I said, "Oh, I want to be a teacher." And he goes, "No, you're not going to be a teacher." And I'm like, "Wait a minute." So it was that pivotal moment in my life that I definitely flipped that switch and said, I really have to apply myself. I have to focus on my studies. I have to teach myself how to study at that time, and that began a switch in my life where I was really, understanding the power of studying and how to go about doing it, and then eventually improving my grades, and then getting into college for that elementary special education pathway. And here I am today, right? So I definitely think about that as an important part of my life and how it has influenced me in educational leadership.
Hmm. So I'm hearing some personal motives. I'm hearing a nudge from that guidance counselor, even though that may be a little negative to begin with. But I mean, it just helped you in the right way. So I mean, I think that is also a pivotal part in your journey. So that is amazing. You're also drawing certain parallels between actors and teachers. That seemed very interesting to me. So if I had to ask you, what do you think are the parallels between teachers and actors?
Yeah. So I just want to clarify. You said what are the connections between teaching and acting?
Yeah, like if someone had to like just draw parallels between being an actor or being a teacher, what are some parallels that one can draw?
Yeah, I think about that when you're in front of students and you want to facilitate learning through teaching, I do think that it's a role that we play in education, right? And sometimes you have to leave some of the other challenges in our lives outside of that classroom, outside of that role, and really, put on that persona of being somebody who's influential, somebody who inspires, somebody who enables joy in the classroom, enables the opportunity for kids to be engaged and to feel empowered and to feel like they belong. And so sometimes as we go through life, we're all filled with stressors and challenges in our personal life, sometimes in our professional life. But when we close that door and we're in front of kids, we have to, we have to bring in that role and execute that role in a way that is transformative for teaching and learning. So I often think about those parallels between acting and teaching.
That is beautifully put, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of times teachers do have some personal issues in their life that they need to just put aside for a hot minute and then just be in that persona of a teacher. That is lovely. Okay, on to my next question. Over 38 years, your leadership has spanned across classrooms, schools, and district-wide initiatives. How has your experience shaped the way that you approach leadership culture and innovation in a district like Grand Island today?
Yeah, wow, thank you. So it's interesting. I've been thinking about this question for a long time, probably about 10 years. And there's a part of me that would like to write a book about this concept, right? So I think for me, I approach educational leadership through the lens of special education. And not only that, but also through the lens of service and serving others. So at some point in my life, I may just write a book that emphasizes the elements of how special education has informed my leadership style, right? And I would say to you that when we look at leadership through the lens of special education. I was a special education teacher for 16 years. I worked with children. I worked with very young children, children who were 18-month to 3-year-olds who had severe physical, developmental, and global disabilities. I also worked with individuals between 16 and 21 years old who also had intense needs, but were also exceptionally violent and challenged socially, emotionally, and behaviorally. I worked with children, all children from elementary through high school, throughout that entire time. And what was true and what was evident for every child was that every child could grow academically, could grow socially, emotionally, or improve their behavior so it was more adaptable, more acceptable. Every child was able to do that. And even those who came with the most challenging needs. And when you can recognize that every child can grow, regardless of ability or disability, then that's true for us as adults. And I really think about that a lot. My father is 86. He uses a computer. He golfs every day. He's part of his church community. And I see him as a role model to me as somebody who's growing and learning every day. It's so easy for adults to say, hey, I already did all that. I don't need to learn anything else, right? But when the adults in the organization can demonstrate growth professionally and personally each and every day, then in turn, our children will follow that modeling. And I think that that is critical to the concept of developing championship school districts. I think championship school districts are emblematic of school districts that believe in the power of professional development, but for everybody in the organization, the Board of Education, the superintendent, everybody who works in buildings and grounds and custodial care, nurses, teacher aides, teachers, you name it. If everybody's on a path of continuous improvement, then we are building championship school districts.
And I think right before this podcast, I remember reading somewhere that a classroom or a teacher is successful, especially when the quietest student feels safe enough to open up in class. So, when we talk about working with kids with special needs, and you've told me that you've worked across all age populations, how is it that you form that rapport in your class when it comes to making everyone feel included or safe enough to just share their thoughts in an open class, which we know can be sometimes very intimidating for some students? How do you get them to open up?
Yeah, so I think it's really important. Even today in our podcast together, I shared something vulnerable with you, right? I shared that I wasn't a good student. You know, I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't studying. Maybe I was watching a little too much television when I came home from school and playing and so forth. But when somebody challenged me and said, I don't think you have the grades to get into college, and that was really what I really wanted to do that. That notion, allowed me to pivot and to begin really applying myself as a learner, and understanding that as a teacher, that we all come to our journey, our pathway, in different and unique ways. Perhaps maybe we are outstanding in literacy. We love literature. We consume ourselves in literature, but maybe math wasn't our strong suit, right? Or maybe we are so science focused that maybe we didn't care so much in social studies, right? So I think it's just really important for all educators to understand that path. How did we get to where we are today, and to celebrate perhaps our failures, celebrate our challenges, the stumbles that we have taken, and then demonstrate how we have learned and how we have grown from those challenges. So going back to your question, I think that without getting too crazy and sharing everything about your life, I think it's that development, building connections and creating relationships where the student sees you as a learner, regardless of the master's degree you have or your PhD, but that we're all challenged in our growth journey throughout our lives. And how do those challenges shape us? And then how do we use those experiences to connect and develop positive relationships with kids? And I think when kids see that a little bit of vulnerability and understand that you have a story and that that story is still being created, that we're still on that journey. I think that that's a really great way to help kids, start to think about themselves, reflect on themselves and their own journey in that classroom.
Hmm. And I think if I had a teacher when I was a kid who opened up that much in front of me, and not to the point where they're oversharing, but like just showed themselves as vulnerable human beings, I think I would have connected with them a little bit more, especially with the whole maths and English thing. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I wish I could call up my maths teacher and tell him that right now. But yeah, I mean, I think that is such an incredible part of being a teacher where, you know where to draw the boundary, but also share some parts of your life. So yeah, that is incredible. Okay, so moving on to our topic for the day, that is integration of AI in K-12 education. So AI is becoming a part of everyday school life, from curriculum planning to student support. How do you define responsible AI integration in K-12 education, and what has that looked like in your school?
Yeah, wow. Love the question. Love the opportunity to talk about responsible artificial intelligence, particularly in education. And so, I think it means that using AI in ways that enhance teaching and learning while protecting students, teachers, and communities is an important concept, and how that can be demonstrated in classrooms and school systems, I think is essential for people feeling comfortable with the use of AI. So I think it's not really about what AI can do, but what it should do to help classrooms open up the opportunities of equity and access to information, um, that the tools that we're using are transparent and that we can actually see where the output is coming from, I think is really important. And that's going to help us build trust in using AI. I think that when we can ensure that the dialogue maybe between student and AI tool, or teacher and AI tool, is protected, and that it is maintained, its privacy is maintained, and there's safety aspects built in around that, to understand that there is, a human centered designed approach around these tools and how they can really empower educators to maximize their potential, and of course then assist our students in their learning process. I think that is critical. um, I think that that AI tools should have guardrails, right? That particularly when they're working with students. In a little bit, I'll talk about KhanMigo, which is an AI tutor baked into Khan Academy, and I'll talk about a little bit about that. But the reason why we're using it is it does have guardrails. If a child types or says something that's maybe inappropriate, maybe safety related, maybe uh, expressing suicidal ideation or homicidal ideation, those guardrails pay attention and alert the adults in the organization to provide support for that child, and while also telling the student that that's not an appropriate conversation when we're learning how to multiply fractions, right? So I think those elements are essential, I think, for defining responsible artificial intelligence. If I could, I just want to share, why I'm a 61-year-old superintendent who is really passionate about this technology, and the pathway to getting to where I am today is grounded in some work that I did as a young special education teacher and a principal who said yes. Okay, a principal who said yes when I asked, could I buy the Kurzweil reading machine in the mid 1990s. You may know that Ray Kurzweil invented optical character recognition, and he did that in the early 1970s. And he created a reading machine where you scan a document, and the document is sent to the computer, and then the computer changes the image to readable text, and then the computer was reading the text aloud to the user in the 70s, in the 1970s, right? So in the 1990s, I asked if I could buy that. My principal said yes, and I was using it with a child who has dyslexia, right? And so now you take that moment of optical character recognition development, and now it's applied in everything. It's automatic speech recognition is using optical character recognition, but through speech. In the 1990s, my principal allowed me to purchase Dragon Naturally Speaking, which was software that would take speech and transcribe it to text. I was using it with a child who has dyslexia, somebody who understood, has amazing listening comprehension, understands, but has great difficulty writing and reading. Imagine that child opening up their world to expressing their thoughts on paper through Dragon Naturally Speaking in the late 1990s, right? And now today we do this all the time. We talk to our phones, we talk to our devices, our smart devices at home, and so when I started to see how technology could transform the learner in the 90s, right? When ChatGPT came out in November of 2022, I immediately saw the power behind how that tool could level text for children, right? Give it high level text and ask it to act as a text leveler and change the text to maybe a fourth grade readability level. Well, maybe this was 11th grade text. To me, that was just everything coming together with what Ray Kurzweil invented and so many other pioneers of AI back in the past decades. Now here was a tool that could quickly, I mean, in seconds, take a massive amount of text and change it so that a child could read it at their readability level and better understand the content that they were learning in classes. So I just think fondly of those years. First, a principal who said yes, right? Said yes to somebody saying, hey, I'd like to try this, I'd like to try that, and then eventually seeing how that technology was helping kids. And now here we are today. Here in Grand Island is north of Buffalo, New York, and south of Niagara Falls, New York. Our neighboring university is the University at Buffalo. And a few years ago, they won $20 million through the National Science Foundation and the Institute of Science Education to create an artificial intelligence institute for exceptional education. And their focus is to build two systems, two AI tools that'll support speech and language therapists. The first tool is going to be an AI screening tool that'll screen every child in the United States. And the second tool they're calling an orchestrator, which is really an artificial intelligent assistant for the speech language therapist. The purpose of their research and development is that there are 3.4 million children in the United States that have speech and language needs on individualized education plans. But there are only 60 to 61,000 practitioners. There are only 60 to 61,000 speech language pathologists available to help 3.4 million children in the United States. So the problem they're trying to solve is, first, they don't want an ad hoc approach. They don't want an ad hoc approach to a mom or a dad or a grandma or a grandpa saying, I don't understand Brian. I don't understand what he's saying. And moms and dads understand, but everybody else in the world doesn't understand me. And so then I'm referred to my pediatrician. My pediatrician refers me to speech and language. They want to eliminate that. They want to screen every child, right? And so the gap could actually grow, right? We could identify more children, but still have the same number of speech language therapists. But here they're saying this AI orchestrator AI assistant will audio and video record the speech session. So when Brian is in the session in a group with two or three other children, that AI assistant is going to do the progress reporting, the data collection and the data analysis, and suggest evidence-based strategies for me that are connected to the universities around the world, right? So now this gap of 3.4 million children and only 60,000 practitioners can can shrink a little bit because the teacher, the speech therapist, doesn't have to spend 30 minutes with me, 15 minutes with the writing, maybe the next 10 minutes of going to the bathroom, and then starting over again in the next 30-minute session. Instead, if we remove the writing and data analysis off the plate of the practitioner, that practitioner can see more children, right? And when we're seeing more children, then the numbers can decrease because we're exiting children quicker from those services. And when we exit children quicker from speech and language services, those children are ready for early literacy growth, right? So this was a long answer to your question. I apologize. But when I see the power of providing an educator like a speech language therapist their own assistant that will do the progress reporting, the writing, and the data collection, that lifts a burden off of this expert and allows the expert to do what they do best, and that is to teach and to instruct and to provide services like that. And so when I think back to my days as a special ed teacher, seeing how technology could transform individual students in my classroom, and then I see what the Institute of Artificial Intelligence for Exceptional Education is doing right now at the University of Buffalo, I am blessed. I am blessed. I'm on their advisory board. I am blessed to work with these researchers, PhDs, because they want to use artificial intelligence for the good of society. So that was a really long answer to your question. I apologize, but that's kind of where my thoughts are when I think back to what I was doing and what we're doing now and what the potential of maximizing our own efficiency as educators is really exciting.
Hmm. First of all, there's no need to apologize because I loved listening to this answer. I loved listening to how AI is not there to replace teachers or special educators, but it is there to aid them to do better and to, I don't know, just get on a lot more students that they already have on their plate. So if they're seeing, say, 10 students per day, maybe they could increase it to 15 just because they have AI supporting them with the analysis or maybe with the assessment. So I think that is a problem that AI can solve for us. You also said that you had a principal who said yes to an experiment you want to try back in that day, and the results that it yielded for you, and then just seeing how easier it may have. How did it work with that student? I would love to know that a little bit. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
I love this question because it wasn't great,
okay,
right? So this is the 1990s, right? And we school districts purchase computers, right, through like a bigger organization. It's actually called the Board of Cooperative Educational Services in New York State. And they're good computers, right? We get good computers. But at that time, when I was using, say, Dragon Naturally Speaking as the software for that computer, you could tell that there were some issues, right? The computer was probably a little bit too slow, didn't have enough compute to process the way it was meant and designed to do. So compute was a factor. The second factor uh, uh, was calibrating my students' readability aloud to the computer. So we spent a lot of time calibrating and then a lot of time maybe a little frustrated with compute, right? Now, think about it now,
yeah,
right? The compute in our phones right? Versus the compute in a laptop from 1990s is just, it's exponentially faster, stronger, more memory, right? And now you don't have to calibrate, right? A child with dyslexia can just start talking to their phone, right? And it's going to dictate accurately with maybe a few things you got to fix, much better than in the late 1990s. So even though it wasn't perfect, you know what was perfect? The child's excitement into seeing their speech transformed into text in the 1990s. I'll tell you another quick story. I had a student who had a severe physical developmental disability. The child has cerebral palsy. The child is fed by a G tube 2.5 hours a day in the morning and so forth, right in my classroom. The child sometimes would get agitated and go from like a hypotonic state to a hypertonic state and bite the inside of his cheek and not be able to release. And but all of that said, the child could not pick up an object. The child could not indicate yes or no. But yet I believed, right, that there was something special inside this child, and this child's body was trapping the child from expressing what that child could do. My principal, Tom Lyons, said yes when I asked him to purchase an infrared beam of light switch that would connect to a computer. This boy, Michael, had random pinky firings that his pinky would just move. He couldn't pick up an object, right? But his pinky every now and then would flare, would fire, right? The infrared beam of light switch was about the size of this pen. And at the end of it was a light bulb, an infrared beam of light, right? And then there was a lead that would connect to an adapter, and the adapter would connect to a computer, right? And when Michael's finger went through the light, it would click the mouse on the computer, right? This was in the 1990s. So I was using a software called HyperStudio at the time. I loved it. It was a Macintosh product. It allowed you to build stacks of cards, and on each card it was similar to Microsoft PowerPoint, but maybe a little bit more advanced at that time. You could embed movies into your slide deck. You could embed voice, and all I did was I made a simple yes and no board, and the yes side of the board would flash and repeat the word yes several times by about 9 seconds. And then 9 seconds later, it would flash on the word no and flash no for 9 seconds. And then it would loop, right? It would repeat. And so what we started to do was ask Michael, a boy trapped in his body, a boy unable to communicate. We would ask him yes and no questions. And throughout time, he got to be about 70% accurate with yes and no questions. So a random firing of a pinky finger could turn into a cause and effectual relationship that then the child could control, right? Because not only were we doing yes and no boards, we were doing recreation, watching videos on the laptop, using the infrared beam of light switch to activate other devices in the classroom for academic or vocational. So again, and you may have to edit all this out because I'm talking way too long for you, but when I think about a principal saying yes and allowing a special education teacher to experiment with different devices that would influence a child's life is just a remarkable gift that principal gave me and in turn gave my students. So I think then now today as an educational leader, we should be saying yes to artificial intelligence. We should be saying yes and looking at it through the lens, perhaps first, of special education and or how can it be an assistant to you as an educational professional? What can it do? If we all had our own assistant every day at our disposal, what tasks would we give that assistant to help maximize our ability to develop joy, engagement, empowerment in the classroom, to turn on that art of teaching because these other tasks are being done by an AI assistant. I mean, that's a great way to begin the conversation with educators. And then how can that assistant mentality be applied to differentiate instruction for the children and personalized instruction for the children in our classrooms?
I am very touched with how just that little observation about I think Michael's pinky finger is what you caught on. You had the perfect tools in your mind for it, and then you had such a supportive principal who said yes to that. So we love that. And I think your answer to this question is the perfect answer for people who say that they're not ready for AI or people who don't really like AI. I think viewing AI as something that can help us do things a lot quicker and not it's not there to replace us, but it's there to assist us, as you put it, is wonderful. I love that answer. Okay, when you were when you were talking about it previously, you mentioned KhanMigo. So, with multiple platforms such as ChatGPT, KhanMigo, and Notebook LM being used in your district, how do you balance innovation with safety, privacy, and teacher readiness?
Yeah. So I am and have been a huge fan of SalCon. I was a middle school principal in 2005, and around 2008 or 2009, Khan Academy was born. And I looked at that as an amazing tool for parents and for students. Sal's vision of making tutorial videos available for everybody in the world for free is is just remarkable, and his story is remarkable. So in 2009 or maybe 2010, I linked Khan Academy onto our website when I was the principal of West Seneca West Middle School. A couple Aprils ago, I watched a YouTube video of Sal Khan and his son demonstrating KhanMigo on their iPad. And Sal's son was pretending he didn't know how to solve a trigonometry question, which was very cute. I'm sure he's very smart and can do that easily. But watching KhanMigo interact with his son and demonstrating cognitive Socratic coaching uh, ideas, right? Again, that I said, oh my gosh, we need that here in our school. So I invited my principal to take a look at that. We purchased his book, Brave New Words, and we did a book study over the summer. And then last September, we opened up KhanMigo, which is an AI tutor and AI assistant for the teacher. We opened that up for every student in our school system, grades 6 through 12. And what is so important about that is first, as an educational leader, looking at it through the lens of how can KhanMigo assist the teacher in the classroom, just like that concept we just talked about. How can, if you had an assistant, what tasks would you give it? So you may know KhanMigo has 27 different modules that are called teacher tools, and each one could be very, very helpful as an assistant to the teacher. Everything from lesson planning, developing individualized education plans, writing letters of reference for students, leveling text. All of those modules are available for free for teachers, I think, in the entire world without paying a penny. On the student side, we do pay for the artificial intelligent tutor KhanMigo, and we purchase that in New York State. We can purchase that through a BOCES, a Board of Cooperative Educational Services. When we make that purchase, we get state aid back on that purchase, which makes buying a tool like that affordable and perhaps and giving it to every child provides access to every child in our school system, grades 6 through 12. And that tool, if you and I were on KhanMigo right now, I could say, hey, help me multiply fractions, and KhanMigo will communicate back to me and say, hey, what do you know about multiplying fractions? I could say, I know nothing. I could misspell. I don't even have to use punctuation. And the AI tutor recognizes what I'm trying to communicate and offers a Socratic approach to educating me in my journey of learning how to multiply fractions, right? I'm not saying that every output in KhanMigo is perfect, and that's why you do need teachers to be paying attention to see if there are anomalies, or sometimes they call it hallucinations. But boy, is it very, very good. And you and I were just chatting at the beginning of this podcast. I was a struggling student in high school. I didn't even know how to study. I can't imagine my potential if I had an AI tutor that was Socratically coaching me and helping me bridge the gap of what I learned in the classroom that day and what I was trying to apply that evening, or weeks later, or months later, in preparation for a massive summative assessment, right? So here in Grand Island, we are using KhanMigo for every student, grades 6 through 12, and it is only getting better every day. And to have a coach, and oh, by the way, every child has their own mobile device, a Chromebook, right? So that tool is available to every child 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And to me, that is, an amazing way, right, to help bridge the gap when people are just a little cautious about AI. How can AI coach a child, not just give the answer, right, but coach them to the answer through a mastery learning approach? Really great.
That was amazing. We were also talking about AI being an assistant to us in our tasks. So, if I were to ask you, as a superintendent, how does AI help you in your district level decisions? And when we're talking about it being an assistant, what task do you make it do as your assistant?
All right, buckle up. Here we go. Get ready. This, listen, oh my goodness, I love this question, and I and my team are using AI every day, and I know I keep coming back to the theme of it's an assistant that maximizes my potential, right? So the first tool that I'd like to share, and many of your listeners and viewers probably are already using it, is Notebook LM. And Notebook LM is a Gemini product baked into Google, okay? And it is amazing. Okay. I mean, it is so amazing. So let me tell you, as a superintendent, sometimes we get massive reports from the New York State Education Department, right? Recently, we got a 300-page study on regionalism, on foundation aid, and all of these things, right? You can take that PDF document that you receive that is just rich with information and put it into your Notebook LM and create your own notebook around it. So Notebook LM allows you to put PDF documents, YouTube URL addresses to a YouTube video, copy and paste text. It connects to your Google Drive, so you can connect specific documents, Excel sheets, or well, Google Sheets, Google Docs, right? Google Slides, and or just copy and paste text. So you can create sources for Notebook to evaluate. And what's exceptionally important here is that this tool is not going out on the web and getting information. They're only looking at the information you provide as a trusted source, right? So I get this document, state wants me to read it. It's 300 pages, right? I'm also a superintendent. I'm also, a parent and a father. How do I balance my work-life load and using AI as an assistant? Drop that document into Notebook LM immediately without even asking. It begins to summarize, to give you an executive account of the document. Okay, that's kind of cool. It suggests questions based on your source that you might be thinking of or you haven't thought of yet, and it'll appear, and you can just click it, and it'll look at your question or the suggested question and give you the answer. Yeah, that's pretty nice. It'll do a briefing document. Click brief document, brief report. Okay, that's nice. It'll do a study guide. It'll look at that source and and create 10 study questions and provide the suggested study answers to the source that you've given. Okay, so that's kind of neat, right? In that study guide report, it also does a glossary of terms automatically without asking. It just does it, which is pretty powerful, right? That's pretty good. Uh, what else does it do? Oh, it will create a frequently asked question document based on the source. Okay, yeah, that's pretty good. What else? Oh, it it now will create an audio overview, a podcast of the source or sources you've given it. And then Notebook will use an artificial intelligent male voice, an artificial intelligent female voice, which sound like podcasters, and they have a conversation together about the source. Oh, hey, let's do a deep dive on Brian Graham just sent us this 300-page report on foundation aid. It should be really exciting, and foundation aid is how we're funded, right, in schools. And then the two AI voices talk to each other about the main themes and ideas expressed in the report or the source you give it. So if you're an audio, if you're good with your auditory listening, that may resonate with you. Now it's creating a video overview of the source, right? So besides an AI voice narrating to you the main themes, it creates a slide deck of the source and narrates the slide deck for you in a short 15-minute, 7-minute video. The audio overview, when you're listening to the audio podcast, you can interrupt it. You can join the podcast.
Okay.
And yeah, you click a button, join now button, and you say, hey, you just talked about, foundation aid as a mechanism. What about this? And then it responds in real time to your thought, right? Based on the sources you gave it, right? Then it does many other things. It has the ability to create specific reports that it will suggest to you or you can customize, right? So Notebook LM, an amazing tool for educators at the district level, superintendents, your assistant superintendents, your principals. But now think about this tool from the lens of special education, right? Recently, I was doing a professional development session here in my district with our school counselors at the high school and middle school. I took Romeo and Juliet play in a PDF, dropped it into Notebook LM, and created an audio overview and a video overview of Romeo and Juliet. If I'm a child in 11th grade who has dyslexia and I have great listening comprehension, or I'm a visual learner, right? But I have dyslexia, right? And it hasn't, I have great difficulty reading. Imagine the power of taking something as a source and adapting it to the individual personalized learning needs of your children, right? You can easily download the audio overview, put it in a Google Drive folder, and send it immediately to your student, right? So when I'm out doing keynotes and workshops, I start at Notebook LM because it is so powerful, and it's only improving. I mean, on September 4th of this year, it didn't have a flashcard button. Right now you click You can click it and it'll create flashcards, a flashcard deck for you as a study guide. That didn't exist on September 4th, but here we are in October and it exists, right? They have a mind map feature. Click a mind map, it creates a flow chart that is you can interact with it, you can move it, you can expand it and so if you're a visual learner and you like graphic organizers, wow. So very excited about Notebook LM. So that's one. Do I have time to share another idea?
Definitely, go ahead.
Okay. So I use Claude.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with Claude?
Yes.
All
Yes.
right. Let me give you an example that I share with superintendents and district leaders and how I use Claude. Here in New York State, we have summative state exams that our high school students take, right, on their journey to graduation. One of those exams is an algebra exam. And traditionally, students in New York State struggle with algebra, right? So when I do a demonstration of Claude, I will take, and the state website has archived Regents exams, right, for math educators and principals to explore. So I'll go to that website, I'll download two previous Regents exams, let's say June 2025 and then June 2024. So now I have two to play with. I take those PDF documents and I drop them into Claude. Okay. Claude's Claude's formatting looks like ChatGPT, so they all kind of look similar. So it's easy. You're not really learning a whole new system. You just drop them in. But here's the prompt that I give Claude. I want you to act as a psychometrician and an expert in algebra as a teacher in New York State. I want you to compare and contrast the two exams and identify the most frequently used vocabulary terms or academic terms and provide them back to me from most frequently used to least frequently used. And make sure you're only looking at the questions and the answer choices, right? So imagine you and I are working together and we are tasked with taking two Regents exams and cross-referencing them and identifying the most frequently used academic terms from the first question on the exam to the last question on the exam. And then we were going to tally them, rank order them from most frequent to least frequent. Claude does this in seconds, right? But what it shows you behind the scenes, it'll show you it's writing code, right, to do the math and to do the work of this task. So now I have in seconds the most frequently used academic terms that are used in the summative state assessments, which are super important for kids to be proficient with, right? If I'm a brand new math teacher, I can already at the beginning of the year develop activities around that vocabulary, right? To make sure that our children are speaking that vocabulary, they understand the vocabulary, right? So that is pretty cool. But then I write the next prompt after I get that list. And I say, I want you to act as an expert in curriculum mapping, right? I want you to develop a curriculum map for 160 days of instruction. Make sure that the curriculum map is calendar based. Make sure it has essential questions, content, skills. Make sure that you identify the New York State standards that are connected to these themes and ideas. Make sure you identify opportunities for differentiation. Make sure you identify opportunities to create formative and summative assessments. And the last prompt in that prompt is make sure you provide me one project-based, authentic learning experience for every unit of instruction that's designed for the curriculum map. Okay, it's a long prompt, but the output is spectacular. It creates a curriculum map based on those two Regents exams, right? That's calendar based, that's designed around the greatest thinkers in curriculum mapping, Heidi Hayes Jacobs' work, and also Wiggins and McTighe. And it develops what would take us a year in staff development to do in minutes, right? So now I can take that document and hand it to my math team and say, hey, I used AI to build this curriculum map. It's 160 days, it spans September through June. Now take your expertise and make modifications or adaptations to it to make it 100% usable here in our school district. That is Claude. And the last thing I'll say about Claude is it will then, if you ask it to, create a web-based interactive platform for your curriculum map. It'll write the code and it'll create something they call an artifact, which then you can take that artifact and put it, say, in the math department's web pages so that they can access it. Very clickable. I can toggle between September and October. I can look at that map. So when I think about the power of AI and some of these tools, right, like Notebook LM and Claude and many, many others, I see that as something that will give us a better work-life balance, and perhaps I would say maybe a benefit to being an employee in a school system. We give healthcare, we give vision, we give dental, we have good salaries, we have steps in our teaching schedules. Oh, and we also give you an AI assistant, right, that will support your work as a teacher.
I think our listeners would really appreciate the practical advice that they've just got on how to use these tools, because I think ChatGPT and Gemini are the most used ones. But looking at Claude and looking at Notebook LM, and I think your explanation on how to use it is something that our listeners would really appreciate. And I think I will also take home some tips from this the next time I'm working on any of these tools. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing these tips with us. If I were to ask you, beyond AI, what are the other emerging technologies or digital tools that are changing how things are looking at your school, especially when it comes to STEAM learning and teaching?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're pretty we have a ways to go.
Okay.
We have a ways to go, right? But already in our curriculum at the high school, children can take classes in drones and robotics, which is very, very nice. We have an amazing teacher who has created this course, and we're very, very proud of him. And we think it's a really good course when we think about drone technology in the United States and around the world. The opportunities are endless for creating new businesses and new opportunities for kids. So drones and robotics is big. We do offer, it's only two, but we offer two classes in computer science. So kind of an introduction and then a little bit more advanced. So we're happy about that. We could probably be doing a little bit more in that area. Our libraries throughout our system have makerspaces for kids, which is really STEAM related. We are also offering a STEM class at the elementary level as well as the middle school, embedding it into other classes and enhancing curriculum with STEAM and STEM opportunities for kids. And we're starting to explore perhaps using devices that will assist children who come to us with English as their second language. And we're starting to look at, I would say, and maybe you're already familiar with some of these devices. This is the Rabbit R1. It is $200. There's no subscription or monthly fee, and the Rabbit R1 is really kind of a cool technology. There's a little push button on the side, like an old walkie-talkie, and you can talk to it and say, "Hey, can you translate from Spanish to English for me?" And then when the person is speaking Spanish, you just press the button, and then you listen to the Spanish, and then when you let go, there's the little rabbit guy. And when you let go of the button, it automatically translates to English or translates to your native language. Over 100 languages available on the Rabbit R1 for only $200. $100, no monthly subscription. Very, very cool. And then Apple just came out with the new AirPods that connect to your iPhone. So this is obviously more expensive, but you can wear these and also get live translation from one language to your native language. This one has far fewer languages available, your traditional languages, Spanish, French, and a few others. But the power of a child wearing this in a classroom when English is a second language could be transformative to having a child assimilate to a classroom and to continue learning while also trying to master the language. So those are just a couple things that we're brewing here in our classrooms, but I think we could be doing a little bit more too.
But I think this is still a lot better than a lot of schools which hesitate to experiment a little. So I think our listeners would appreciate getting a demo of these tools, especially the rabbit one is something that I was not aware about. So just thank you so much for sharing that with us. And yeah, I mean, thank you so much for like sharing all of these insights with us. I think I, along with all of our listeners, really appreciate your time. And yeah, thank you so much for doing this with us today.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thank you again to all of your listeners too and subscribers. I really appreciate the work that you're doing, leading the way in conversations like this. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in. For more information about TomoClub, visit TomoClub or follow us on our socials. Stay curious, keep learning,